So the FBI released some more information on Omar Mateen, the terrorist who killed 50 people at an LGBT club in Orlando over the weekend. And there's one fact here that's a massive head-scratcher. He apparently pledged allegiance to ISIS, as we knew from the initial reports. On the way to do this terror attack and this mass shooting, he told 911 that he's pledging allegiance to ISIS. But then also, we learned that in the past, he's pledged allegiance to Al-Qaeda. Okay, well, they're both jihadist groups. They both, kind of have a streamlined message. Although it is true, for anybody who knows the details of this, that Al-Qaeda and ISIS are actually sworn enemies because ISIS was a break-off branch of ISIS. They were Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and then they became their own thing because they didn't like Central Command. So it's a little weird to, join rival groups, but you could say, hey, they're Salafi jihadist groups. These are Wahhabi groups. These are, they share the same philosophy, so it's really not that crazy. Okay, well, then you add in he pledged allegiance to Al-Nusra. So we got three groups now. Al-Nusra, for those of you who don't know, is Al-Qaeda in Syria, and they're a distinct branch of Al-Qaeda. In fact, their main thing, as of right now, is that they're fighting in this civil war against Assad and the Shias, and they're trying to take down the government in Syria and erect some sort of Islamic theocracy in the region. So now we have three groups that he pledged allegiance to. Now, again, the argument is, well, they all share the same philosophy, so even though they may have bickering between them, I don't get what the big deal is. Here's where you drop the bomb in the conversation. No pun intended. He also pledged allegiance to Hezbollah. Okay, now anybody who knows anything about the Middle East is going, that makes no fucking sense. Because Hezbollah is a Shia group. And not only do they not agree with Al-Qaeda and ISIS and Al-Nusra, they are literally fighting them right now. They are sworn mortal enemies. There's honestly a case to make that Hezbollah and ISIS, or Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda, they're higher on the list than, the West is to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Like, all these ideas, we're going to get the Crusaders, the goddamn Americans, and they're terrible, yada yada. That's all but first we got to take care of these goddamn Shia militias and Shia groups in the region, and, the people who are helping Assad, and they're number one on the list. We got to get them. They're standing in our way. So he pledged allegiance to groups that are just complete and utter enemies, which leads you to what conclusion? Now, some people, I think, are taking away the wrong conclusion from this. And they go, well, then obviously this shows that religion has nothing to do with it. No. That's not what it shows. What it shows is that he is incredibly confused. Now, there's other things that point in that direction anyway. I mean, the fact that anybody would go out and kill people in and of itself is a massively backwards, immoral, unethical, and confused act to do. Like, something's off if you're doing that. But it does show you that he doesn't know the details. He doesn't know the specifics. But there is still that element of, Islamic fundamentalism in his actions. And I don't think anybody should try to deny that. In fact, we know his dad brainwashed the living shit out of him. There's been countless articles that have been released since the event happened where his dad said God himself will punish homosexuality. And his dad at one time pledged allegiance to the Taliban. So obviously he was raised to hate gay people. His dad also said the reason he went nuts is that he couldn't stand to see two gay people kissing. Well, why would that lead one to attack gay people? Well, obviously that seed was planted from long ago that that's evil, that's wrong, that's immoral, that disagrees with Almighty Allah. But what it does show you is, although that's certainly a real part of it, the deep religious brainwashing, there's also this element of he is a crazy person too. And by the way, people have been tweeting at me and saying you play too loose with that word, and for example, this guy was bipolar. So people say when you point to that as evidence as to why he would do the shooting, that's not a fair thing to say because I'm bipolar and I'm not violent. You got to understand, guys, that's not what I mean. I'm not implying that all bipolar people or all quote unquote crazy people are prone to do violence. I'm just saying it's one piece of this massive puzzle, and all the other factors could be more relevant, for example, but that mental illness also played a factor in this is undeniable. That's not to say all mentally ill people are violent, of course not, but it is to say that that is one piece of the puzzle in this giant puzzle here, and when you look at everything in its totality, you begin to get a clear picture of what's going on. So you have a guy who is a brainwashed Islamic fundamentalist. You have a guy who's totally confused. There's other stories about him being this loner that nobody liked. We're going to get to some of those later. And it just goes to show you yet again that when you live in a country that has super duper duper easy access to guns, and you have many people who are confused and off their rocker and violent and extremist religious fundamentalists, it can end bad, man. Now, again, I have not said, and I don't believe that we should ban guns. I think that's a bad idea. But should we more stringently and rigidly regulate them? And should we ban certain kinds of guns? And should we make it harder to get a gun? And should we make it so that we do regulation that would lower the statistics dramatically of number of gun deaths in the United States? Well, absolutely. I don't see a logical counter-argument to that. This guy, beat his wife. This guy had outbursts at work that people called sexist and racist and, obviously homophobic, and he spoke of killing people. He had many incidents where he was violent. Again, we'll get to some of them later. And still, at the end of all of it, he was able to go into a gun shop a week before he massacred people and just buy whatever the fuck he wanted. Well, no, we should have had a background check system that was good enough that would have rejected him. But we didn't have it. And I love the counter-argument. People from the right are saying, well, he went through the whole process, so yeah. No, but that doesn't prove your point, it proves our point. The process should have had clear enough rules and should have been distinct in the sense that nobody would have sold this guy a gun. But when you have the background check, but you don't lay everything out specific enough where you say, okay, here are the things that are disqualifying, well, then you're left with this. So they think they're proving their case. They're proving our case. They're just showing that we need better regulation, smarter regulation, more efficient regulation. But, I mean, this is another large piece of the puzzle, that you have somebody who was so immensely confused that he pledges allegiance to ISIS, al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, and Hezbollah. And I think it all goes to something that one of his friends said, or an acquaintance had said. He always seemed like he was just, trying to fit in. And for whatever reason, he didn't have the capacity or the ability to connect with people in that way. So it was kind of like a lost soul who's also brainwashed with Islamic fundamentalism, and the end result was, we know what it was.